applications. I mean, especially here in New England, we have a massive opiate epidemic, and the doctors prescribing these opiates, in our opinion, are doing the patients a great injustice, and also doing the community a great injustice.
What do you say then to the political and the medical community at large, as well as you've got this dichotomy? You've got the ability to integrate a proven technology, for lack of a better term, with cannabis, into the medical environment, which will operate at a lower cost. I mean, at certain times you just bang your head against the wall and the frustration must be overwhelming.
Every day we bang our head against the wall. That's for sure. It's a very challenging business. It's a very regulated business. And we're bound to follow those regulations. We have a lot of employees that count on us. We're not going to skirt any of the state-issued regulations for a short-term gain. And to answer your question, every day our staff is banging our heads against the wall.
Do you prescribe medical marijuana for that?
Absolutely we do. Absolutely. That's a qualifying condition.
Where do you see, in terms of states, I imagine running a business of this sophistication, you're following all the states. Where are the big battlegrounds coming up?
The big monsters that everyone's eyeing is Illinois, which already have a program in place but not implemented. New York has a very interesting program, and the most interesting and the most desirable for anybody in the cannabis industry is Florida. Florida lost there was a citizen referendum. We lost the election by a half a point. They needed 60% of the population to vote for it, for the citizen referendum, and they got 59%.
Actually, more people voted for legalized marijuana than voted for the governor in the state of Florida during that election.
That's correct. But November 2016, it's on the ballot again, and it's a presidential election. We've earned 58.5% during a midterm election. We're going to crack that 60% come this presidential election. We're very confident.
I think things are looking positive for Florida. And actually, I'm friends with Todd McCormick out in California, and he's saying that his belief is that once Florida makes that transition, he thinks the rest is going to follow suit. It tends to follow that way.
I agree, especially for that southeastern part of our country. Georgia just passed a medical marijuana law that was mind-blowing.
And they have decrim down there already.
They sure do.
Now, the FDA, what role, if any, at this point, do they play in analyzing any of the variety of products that we have, even on sale today?
0.
0.0.
0.0, exactly. Yep. Although they are dipping their toes into it. There's a company out there that's a publicly traded company. It's very popular. They're featured on the CNN Weed special with Sanjay Gupta recently, GW Pharmaceuticals. And GW Pharmaceuticals is a European company that's very dialed in with the CBD industry, and they are trying to formulate synthetic CBD stateside. So they're going through the FDA trials as we speak. So the FDA is now being forced, because of GW Pharma, to dip their toes into the medical marijuana world. And it's inevitable. Well, what our doctors want to see is an FDA-regulated program.
Yeah. It strikes me that you've got these two huge areas in American medicine, one of them being obviously non-prescriptive, but supplements, vitamins, things like that.
Nutraceuticals.
And in your industry, and they seem to just want to turn a blind eye to it. Mm-hmm. Yet these are two of the biggest economic, philosophical, and medical challenges that we face in the 21st century.
I think they're turning a blind eye to it in public, but I think in private, the FDA and Big Pharma, they're into it. I'm very convinced that Big Pharma will jump into this the first chance that they get.
And that's what I think that too. I think that's actually been the reason for a lot of the holdup, because Big Pharma is going to be one of the first people to really profit off of it. They already have patents for it, and it's just, I think they're just waiting for whatever political aspect they need to where they can kind of dictate how the medicine's going to be distributed. And, I hate to play conspiracy theorist, but I really think that plays a lot into what we're looking at right now.
Well, to me, what's interesting too is that you have companies like CVS, which are clearly branching into direct patient contact now. for the first time with their minute clinics and organizations like that. Do you ever fear an organization like that just trying to jump in wholesale? Or do you see ultimately yourself, and I'm talking business level now, as a buyout target for a company like a CVS who wants to be an overnight player in that footprint?
That's a very interesting question. We don't consider ourselves as a buyout target. We consider ourselves as a rapid growth company, and we're looking forward to going to all the states that I mentioned previously and helping patients get their recommendations.
Interesting.
All right. Well, Kevin, I appreciate you hanging out with us, and definitely would love to have you do something with us in the magazine.
Absolutely.
We'll be in touch in the future.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for having everybody at CannaCare Docs. Thanks, guys.
So before we wrap things up today, I'd be remiss if I didn't find out about the big 13 Folds hemp party. And, well, if you can believe it, that wraps up close to 3 hours of live broadcasting, gavel-to-gavel coverage. I lost the 13 Folds guy. They're heading out here. And if you can believe it, 3 hours of broadcasting yesterday, 3 hours of broadcasting today, bringing it to you live, peppering it with local music right here on Rhode Island Free Radio, online at rifreeradio.org. Of course, the Coalition online at coalitionradio.us. You can get their podcast there, and, of course, blog content as it continues. Echoes of Petra up next, some local music. This track is called Slap Your Savior. It's right here on Rhode Island Free Radio. Coming out of some local music, Slap Your Savior, the name of that one, Echoes of Petra, right here on Rhode Island Free Radio, online at rifreeradio.org. Tony Jones here, joined by my old pal, the PO taxpayer, Pat Ford, if you can believe it, rolling into over 3 hours of local coverage, gavel to gavel today of the Rhode Island Cannabis Convention. Of course, yesterday, broadcasted live all day for you, and if you missed it, it's in podcast form, rhodeislandfreeradio.org. And unfortunately, we do have to head towards wrapping things up today. We need to get the PO taxpayer back into the crypt, and we need to preserve him for 1 week's time so he can broadcast again next weekend.
We at this point, we started broadcasting yesterday. We've been on some form of media for, 12 out of the last 18 hours? So, our next guest will hopefully forgive us if, in fact, we're starting to break down a little bit here. I think you're going to find me in the fetal position underneath the desk after this. Because on one hand, this whole event is such a tease. So much fun. And so close, yet so far away.
I got to say, we have covered more in this weekend of real issues and some of the best guests that have come through than the mainstream media has covered probably in years of time in their attempts of covering cannabis, and especially on the medical side. You sometimes will get a little bit of a soundbite in there, but you're not going to hear anybody else having a long-form conversation with Regulate Rhode Island or the Thomas Slater Center or the Canacare docs that were just here. You're not going to see that anywhere else.
Well, and the problem is our leaders, our alleged leaders, would rather hide. They would rather hide behind the issue and spew out some psychobabble as opposed to taking what is clearly a very important and necessary step towards pushing this industry forward. Everything that's happened in Massachusetts and to whatever's happened in Rhode Island, our quote-unquote leaders have had to be dragged kicking and screaming along the entire way.
And I literally laughed out loud when the gentleman from Canacare Docs that was here told us that Rhode Island still uses a paper form, while in Massachusetts they're uploading all of that information online. And once again, we see with their Seekonk location, kind of as Rhode Island's in the economic doldrums, the buildup of those businesses right on the Rhode Island border. Right. And from experience.
Yeah, as usual. I mean, help is just a few miles away. Better schools, better taxes, a more intelligent approach to medical support and healthcare in general is just merely a few miles away.
Right.
So in saying that, I'd like to welcome our next guest in the time we have left. I'm sitting with Ellen Brown and Mike Whitaker. Now, Ellen, you're with the New England Grassroots Institute.
Yes.
All right, and you're one of the instructors. And Mike, okay, why don't you just bring the mic right up?
I'm also with them as well. I teach the law class for them.
Okay, great. So tell us then about the New England Grassroots Institute, where you're located, how long you've been in existence, and what approach you're taking to education.
So New England Grassroots Institute is the first cannabis education center in all of New England. We were established in October of 2012. We opened our doors the week that Question 3 passed, and we started